Hi there, welcome back to Gifted Guitars. Today we are continuing our work on this West Side Story themed 335 style guitar for Rachel Zegler. If you missed the first episode, go back and check that out. I will put a link in the description as well as up above me. This is the second episode in this series for this particular guitar. I'm excited about this one. It is going to be beautiful. At least if it turns out the way that it looks in my head, it's gonna be beautiful. In today's episode, we're going to stain this. The first step to that is going to be sanding everything down so that it is smooth as possible, because any scratches or nicks in the guitar at this point will show up even more after I stain and paint the guitar. So I need it to be perfect before I do anything else. And then after that, I'm gonna try and figure out how to get the design that I came up with in Photoshop onto here. I think I'm gonna use a Cricut, but I might do some other technique. I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna be experimenting a lot with this one and really trying to figure out how to make it great. I just think this is such a beautiful guitar shape already. We're starting off a little bit ahead of the game here. It's already beautiful. Let's make some sawdust. All right, before I start sanding this part of the guitar, the neck of the guitar, I want to work on this part, which is called the headstock. They give you a little bit of extra space in this kit to do something interesting. And I have been sort of mulling over what that design should be, and I think I'm gonna base it off of, this is kind of weird, the sleeve of the sort of iconic dress that is worn in the movie. There's this like white dress in one of the scenes that's been in the trailer, it's been in a lot of the promo shots, and there's this sort of like ruffled, it's not ruffled, but like a design, a pattern that's cut out in the sleeve, and I think it might make a cool headstock. So I'm going to trace this a bunch of times and try a couple different variations on that, pick one, and then cut it out of here. I use that cut to really get the rough shape of this, but the fine tuning of it is gonna all happen in the sanding. So let's get out some sandpaper and make this perfect. think I've mentioned before on this channel that sanding stuff is not my favorite thing to do. I don't enjoy it. And one thing that I really work on with myself is finding the joy in stuff that I have to do. I know I'm gonna have to sand it, so I'm trying to work on that with myself, on like, how can I enjoy this? How can I better this experience for myself so that it is less a task that I have to do and more a task that I can really put some pride into and really do a good job of and be proud of myself afterward. That's something that I'm working on internally. It doesn't show up on camera at all, but I thought I'd mention it because it is something that I am working on about myself. I think stuff like that is kind of helpful to other people as well. So there you go. That's something that I'm working on. I'll let you know how it goes. I actually enjoyed sanding this kind of in the same way I enjoyed editing the show that I worked on and wrote. I've mentioned it before, that's my producer's chair or the back of my producer's chair for Haters Back Off. I wrote some of the episodes of that show. I was one of the executive producers on that show, and I was really nervous about going into the editing bay. Editing has always been something that I've done that I haven't really like super enjoyed. And it was during that show that I realized, oh, editing is the final rewrite of the show. I got the same joy out of editing that show as I did in writing the show. And I thought it was gonna be just, I love writing and I've gotta do all the other stuff. I enjoyed the entire process and it made me really enjoy editing. And now, especially with these videos, I really enjoy the editing process. I'm looking at sanding in the same way. Sanding's the last step in the carving process. It's my final chance to sort of tweak things and make it the way that I want it. And looking at it in that light has really helped me out. So I don't know if that's gonna help you out with whatever it is that you're working through, but I thought I'd pass that along just in case it inspires you. The next step of this is gluing the neck joint into the body of the guitar. And the last guitar that I built was for my brother-in-law, Eric Stockland, who was also in the show Haters Back Off. But that's a whole different story. You can find out more about that in my previous videos. But I got a lot of questions on his guitar because his guitar was the first guitar where I glued the neck and the body together before doing any of the painting work. On previous guitars that I've built, I used a bolt-on method. And with the bolt-on method, the nice thing is I can use those screw holes to sort of hold the guitar body and hold the neck, build a jig or a handle to spray the body and the neck independently. With a guitar like this, I don't want to get any overspill of lacquer where the guitar is going to join, where it's gonna become one thing. I've had experience in the past where something that was supposed to be glued together, I painted, and then when I glued it together, I realized that I didn't paint far enough in, or I painted too far in, and it's just better, I think, with a build like this and the last guitar that I built, to glue the joint in before I get started. Only reason I bring that up is a bunch of people ask me about it in the comment section. I read the comment section. I tried to comment back to as many of you as possible, but I thought I'd also address it here because we're gonna do it again. We're gonna glue this in. All right, I want everything set out before I get started. I've got a scrap piece of wood, a little piece of foam. I have this shop rag, and that's gonna go onto here. And then I've got another shop rag, which will go underneath. More shop rags to deal with the squeeze out and clamp. Okay, so now we just let that sit overnight, and hopefully in the morning we've got a one-piece solid guitar. I guess I'll see you then. All right, it is the next day. Time to take the clamp off and see if we made a guitar or not. Here we go. Yep, that is together. I love this stage of a guitar build, when the neck first goes onto the body. You feel what the guitar is gonna feel like. It's a pretty big guitar, but it's light. It feels light, it feels nice. I don't own one of these, but I've always wanted to. They're really cool. I love this style, this sort of like old classic guitar style. Nice, we've got a blank canvas to do some staining and some painting on. Before I start the process of staining this guitar, I wanted to try a little experiment because in the last guitar video that I did, I stained the guitar and someone recommended that I use something called liquid mask. I used to work at an art store and I'm familiar with liquid mask. It is something that is used in watercolor a lot. This is some made by Winsor and Newton. I never really thought to do it on a guitar until I got that comment, and I want to test it. I want to see how easy it is to work with on wood. I've only ever used it on paper before. Basically what this is you brush it onto whatever it is you're working on, and then you can paint over it, and it doesn't allow the paint or the stain to get to the areas that has this on it, and then you can sort of scrape this off, and you've got blank canvas underneath, or blank paper, because it's usually used with watercolor. So I have some tester wood, I have this, and I've got some dye, and I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna see how this works and if it is the best way to do this guitar, because to be completely honest with you, I don't know how I'm going to do this guitar yet. But this technique could help me out quite a bit. So I'm gonna try it, see if it works, and if it does, I will apply it to the guitar. All right, I'm gonna try a little bit right here. Try kind of a pattern. My concern with using this is that it's gonna soak up into the wood and I won't be able to get it off to paint something else on it. All right, I'm glad I did that test because if it had worked, it would have been a really good option for this, but it didn't work. I need to be able to mask, take off the masking, and then paint over the areas where I masked. And this, I don't think is gonna cut it. So I have three options. The first one is doing a hand cut out masking. And I've done that before. I like it, it's kind of fun. The other option is to do a much more accurate Cricut masking, which also could work really well. And the third, and probably most easy option, if it worked, would be to use black over some leather dye. So I would leather dye the sunset or the sunrise into the guitar, and then the silhouette I would just paint over that sunrise. The problem with that is I've used paint over this leather dye before, and what happens is the dye gets lifted up from the wood into the actual paint. So when I paint over it, it seeps in. So I'm gonna try another test to see if I use yellow, if it messes with the color black, because that's basically what I'm gonna be doing. The base of this is gonna be yellow, and then I want black over it. And if I don't have to do the masking on both sides of it, if I don't have to mask the sunrise and the silhouette, it's gonna make things a lot less complicated. So I have a few more testers here. I'm going to stain them yellow, and then I'm gonna try a couple different blacks to see what works the best, if something works well at all. All right, on this side we're gonna use sanding sealer, and this is no sanding sealer. This is gonna be sanding sealer, and it's gonna be lacquer? No, sanding sealer, lacquer. In order to test this out, I'm gonna take these two and spray them with sanding sealer on this side only and leave this side exposed. I stained both tiles front and back with yellow, then I put sanding sealer on one side of each tile, and then I masked off one of them and used black lacquer on both sides of it, and then on the other one I didn't do any masking because if I'm gonna paintbrush stuff on, I don't really need the masking, so I used a paintbrush and put on acrylic paint on front and back. And so far the acrylic paint doesn't look so good. Like you can see, it's gonna take quite a few coats to really even get a good black going there. The sanding sealer side did have a cleaner edge, right there. But on the other side, there's quite a bit of bleed. And then this is the one that I used the guitar lacquer on, the black guitar lacquer. Again, no sanding sealer, had a little bit of bleed going on there, less bleed here. The thing that I'm really looking for is that orange coming through, the yellow color coming through, and I do see it a little bit, but I think I need to give it some time. What I'm worried about and what my theory is that over time, this guitar dye has such strong pigment that it'll seep into the pigment of the lacquer or the acrylic and change the color. It'll sort of turn a greenish, gross brown color instead of black. And so I'm gonna leave these out overnight, check them in the morning. I can already tell this one is not, this isn't it. It's gonna be the lacquer, which means I'm gonna have to mask it somehow. The question is, do I need to mask it before I put the black on? So far it's looking like maybe. I might hit it with another coat and see how that does too. It is the next day and I can work with this. This is good. This is the sanding sealer with the lacquer, 2 coats, and I am not seeing any yellow seeping through. It's not turning green or purple or any weird color like that. So this is the method that I'm gonna use. This is good. I want to do a test with the leather dye itself. These dyes are very potent. They seep into the wood, they get really dark and vibrant. And while there is some vibrancy to this design, it's a little more subtle, especially in this area here. I want the natural wood color to come through. And so I want to experiment with adding rubbing alcohol with the dye and seeing if I can dilute it a little bit so that I can still spread it onto what I'm working on without it just getting way too vibrant, letting some of that wood shine through. So I put a little bit of alcohol in each of these. The first thing I'm gonna do is just try and put like a drop of this into that and see if that does anything for me. So this is yellow. Purple's the one that's the most intense, I find. It typically gives me the most trouble. So let's mix this up. Let's see if just like right out of the gate I can get a nice transition going here. So I'm gonna go with the yellow. Okay, we're getting something there. Not exactly what I hoped for, but next experiment I want to do is try just using the alcohol as a way of sort of creating a wash. So I'm going to use just the alcohol, and then I'm going to use straight purple. And then I'm going to use the alcohol to sort of spread it. The camera's actually picking this up in a really weird way. This is much more purple than it looks on camera. Like this is like a deep purple. It's coming up as blue on the camera. I'm looking through the lens here. Whereas this is very pastel-y. Okay, I'm gonna go a little darker with purple. Just a little darker. And pour some of that into the red. And see how that reacts. And go lighter with the yellow. I mean, that's pretty close. It's hard to say. The transitions are kind of tough to get on this small of a piece, and I'm wondering how they're gonna look on the big guitar, and it's a different type of wood. I mean, it's similar to this. It does react similarly. Based on working on Eric's guitar, this wood and that wood do kind of act similar in the way that the stain seeps in and does its work, but it's kind of hard to tell. I think this is pretty close though in terms of color. The color is almost perfectly aligned there. This is a little lighter, but I don't know how I'm gonna get this any lighter than it already is. So I think what I have to do is I just have to like put it on there and see what happens to it, which makes me nervous, but that's kind of how I've dealt with every step of every guitar. It makes me nervous, and then I do it, and then I go, okay, did that work? If it did, great, move on. If it didn't, figure something else out. That went okay. It was, it went in some directions I wasn't expecting, but I think overall it looks pretty good. It's gonna look even better, I think, with the silhouette on there. It got a little too deep yellow, like from what was in my head, and it got a little streaky, and there were a couple spots on the guitar where the grain wouldn't take any pigment, like it was just rejecting it. I think that has to do with the grain itself, or like some spill over when they were putting the binding in. There's something there that's making the dye just sort of back away and not permeate the way that I want it to. But in true Bob Ross fashion, I'm just gonna say those are happy little clouds. So anywhere there's not perfect dye, it's just the sky being the sky. Thanks for the optimism, Bob. Okay, so I sanded it, and then I saw some bits that I thought I could make better, so I put more dye on there, and I'm at the point right now where I think I just need to stop touching it. This happens to me sometimes with art or with like baking, decorating, or like cooking stuff, where I get to a point where I see little flaws and I want to fix it, and I keep working at it, and if I keep working at it too much, I go over the edge and then I end up making it worse. And I don't want to get to that point. I feel like it's good, and it's going to get even better once I put the silhouette and the black on the back and all the other elements of it. Right now it's good, and good is good. I don't want perfection to ruin something that's good, because sometimes when you pursue perfection too much, it ends up ruining the thing that you're working on. So it's good. I like it. I'm happy with it. So I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna tape up the fretboard, and I'm gonna spray it down with a few coats of sanding sealer just to lock everything into place, sand it, and then move on from there. So it's time to tape up that fretboard. You know what? On all the previous guitars, what I've done is masked out the fretboard, worked on the guitar, taken the tape off, and then worked on the frets, and then oiled the fretboard. The problem with that is, every once in a while, when I lift up the tape off of the fretboard, it takes little fibers of the really dry rosewood off of the guitar. I am not a big fan of that happening, so what I was thinking was, I could oil the fretboard now, before I've done any work on it at all, and maybe that might make it so the tape doesn't stick very well to the actual fretboard, so when I peel the tape off, it doesn't do any damage to the fretboard. I think it's worth a try. Let's do it. Okay, time to put on a respirator and get this going. Okay, I have done all the sanding sealing on this, so you can see it's kind of got a little shine to it right now. And this is the back. I love the wood on this, especially on the sides here. Look at the sides. I don't think this isn't really a feature of this guitar necessarily, but look at how dancey. Look at how dancey the light is on the sides of this guitar. Very cool. I'm gonna cover that all up with black though, so don't get too attached. But yeah, I like the color on this. There are a couple things that like I wish I knew more about staining and I could fix them. For example, this area here got darker than I wanted it to. You see how it kind of goes from this pink to just almost black, then to blue. That's supposed to be more of a purple. I've always had bad luck with purple dye. For anybody that's watched my channel long enough to know the other Rachel I've built a guitar for, my sister, I tried to stain her guitar purple and I had to start completely over again. Purple's a difficult color with the leather dye, but that is the color of the guitar. This is what we're gonna go with. So I hope you join me. I hope you subscribe to the channel and check out next week's episode where I put the cityscape on here. I'm really excited about this guitar. I do think that once the cityscape is on here, we've got the black on the back with West Side Story written in the new font that they're using for this movie. It's gonna be great. This is gonna be a really cool guitar. I love this shape. I just think this is such a classic, iconic guitar. It feels good, it's lightweight, and yeah, I'm having fun with it. I'm having fun learning how to do this style of guitar. Anyway, I hope you join me next week. Write a comment in the comment section, please. I read all the comments. Give the video a like. It lets me know that you're enjoying what I'm putting out there. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next week.